Now, there's a lot of materials out there, Buddhist and non-Buddhist. Some people read Vedanta, Advaita, uh, or some variants of those teachings that focus on non-duality. Uh, Much of those may not be Buddhist, and much of those, from the Buddhist perspective, despite the claim of non-duality, it's actually duality. So as long as a person is using a method of practice, as long as the method is present and one is practicing, is dualistic. As long as a person is not in the awakened state, whatever they use is dualistic. As long as the person is operating, navigating through daily life, talking with some people, is dualistic. So this term non-duality, at least in Buddhism, refers to something very specific. It is simply another word for awakening. Now, a person in that awakened state, are they able to navigate through daily life, talking with people, doing research, do all kinds of work? Of course. And is there subjectivity? Of course. So when that person sees a red light with his car that he's driving, is he non-dualistic? Of course, there's a conventional sense of dualism. There is subjectivity. That's the way that we're wired. So the way that the brain is neurologically wired produces a sense of subjectivity so that one can navigate through daily life. Now, what is awakening then? Awakening is a state, our original state, without reifying, solidifying, grasping. So the natural free flow of the mind is able to function without this fixed self-referentiality. Now, one can have subjectivity without subject, without fixed notions of sense of self. So subjectivity is the natural biological, neurological function of the mind for us to see each other. We have a spatial orientation. We know red light is different than green light. We know a man is different from a woman. But the constant sense of self-referential tendency and habit, thus reifying a permanence of me, I, mine, that's not there. So it's less self-centered, self-referential. It's more, you can't even say other or referential, but it's more like what needs to be done, what can be done is very clear. Now, what do I mean by self-referentiality? This seems like an abstract term. How it actually manifests is, however slight it is, the sense of gaining, losing, having, possessing, lacking, the sense of success, failure, grasping, rejecting. So these kind of tendencies, fame, defamation, someone praises you, right? Someone blames you. So this kind of, in these situations, the grasping manifests. And that grasping, Buddhism called it self-attachment. So that is a very, very specific reference. Okay? There's many names for it. Sometimes called non-duality, sometimes called taste of nirvana, sometimes called shunyata, or Buddha nature, functioning of Buddha nature. All these are synonymous names, or awakening. Sometimes the functioning is called prajna, non-self-referential. Sometimes it's called non-duality. But it's not a literal non-duality. Whatever tradition, spiritual tradition claims of non-duality, it's dualistic. Unless that person becomes an idiot, running into walls, don't know man from woman, green light from red light. The subjectivity is always there. Otherwise, the person can't navigate. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they use fancy terms, and I'm quite critical of these traditions. Sometimes you use fancy terms like awareness, pure awareness, or naked awareness, or bare witnessing, or kind of non-dual awareness. The functioning of awareness itself, for everyone, is in itself non-dual. It's not something you have to gain. The eyes see, ears hear, our whole being experiences. That's a natural functioning. What differentiates between, oh, this is that, that's different than this, is after that immediacy of embodied visceral experiencing, the self-referentiality makes distinctions. Right? The sense of actually, even before that, the subjectivity, the way that we're naturally wired, kicks in. Right? And then the self start to make distinctions at kind of instantaneously at that rate. But the awareness itself is something one has to cultivate. So awareness itself is already free. Awareness has no self-referentiality. That's what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like your awareness now, the ability to see. Now, what makes self-referentiality solidifies it, like Banya's over here, Guo Gu, I'm looking at him in this little square over there, this kind of spatial orientation, and thus giving you a sense of me. I'm here. I'm different than that. Right? That kind of self-referentiality, that kicks in later. You see? But the awareness has no self. It doesn't need to have a self for the eyes to see, ears to hear. That's the function. Another mistake. Some people talk about non-dual awareness, and they confuse it. When they experience this awareness itself, they confuse it with self-consciousness. Like they are in themselves, watching themselves, kind of being aware, or being aware of awareness. That is creating a thing and then looking at it. Meanwhile, that thing don't exist. So the mind is simulating a clarity, simulating an awareness, and then being aware of that. Totally dualistic. If we're in the flow of experiencing, in the flow of awareness itself, we don't even need a self in order to function. Right? Our subjectivity already takes care of everything. So that means we don't need the kind of gaining, losing, having, lacking, wanting, needing, right? Grasping, rejecting. The natural functioning, the free flow functioning, it's already there. We're already free. It's just this, we're always tainting it, staining it with our sense of, gaining and losing, sense of lack that we feel. and we have to compete with other people. It's totally unnecessary. So that said, every method, as long as there's a method, of course, you're using the method. So the subjectivity is there. Right? Subject doesn't need to be there. So a sense of, gaining, losing, if I use this method, hey, I've been using it really good. If I continue, maybe I'll be enlightened the next sitting, right? Or I am doing so bad. Why is everyone else doing so good? Like this kind of self-conscious comparison. That is the unnecessary thing. So if one is just in the flow of the method, subjectivity is there. The sense of self usually still there, unless the person is in the awakened state. So it's just a matter of degrees. It's a range of grays. It's not black and white. For example, the sense of self, when it's fragmented, it's chaotic, discursive thinking. That's different than when it's concentrated, focused on the method only. Right? That's very different than a kind of unified sense of self. So the self expands beyond just the method. The method disappears, and that momentum of embodied experiencing continue, the concentration continue. It's a kind of unification. So the boundaries between self and the outside world, the environment, the meditation hall, or garbage that you see on the street, kind of the container of that self-reference becomes more porous, and it's a kind of resonance, what we call a unity, non-oppositional experiencing. So that's also very different. But is the self there? Self is still there. It's just a matter of degrees. Until the self suddenly drops away. The constant comparing, however unconscious, grasping, suddenly drops away. Then that is what Buddhists consider awakening, which come by many names. Non-dualist is one of them. But that person totally is able to function in daily life. Okay. So is it necessary? I'll just take the last question. Is it necessary to think about all this? Not really. This is, just use the method. Just practice, and the path will unfold. If you think too much of it, then that just feeds into self-detachment. So then you become like this little Vanya checking, hey, am I almost there? Oh, this looks like what we're saying. Oh, I feel very, very open. That's kind of self-conscious. So it's best not to know all this. Don't even think about it. But don't get caught up with the words and language and the fancy terms of all the spiritual traditions try to sell. The litmus test is to just check whether there's the presence of greed, grasping, aversion, rejecting, which is another way of saying having, lacking, a sense of gaining and then losing. Right? Just check if that's there. Right? To see how you feel when someone praises you. How do you actually feel? When someone seems to be challenging you, how do you feel? That's the litmus test. See? Don't worry about those fancy terms. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't understand the last word you said, the litmus test?
Litmus test. It's like a scientific test. It's like one of those tests that, you test for colors.
Ah, right. Yeah, yes. I get it. Yeah.
It's like a pregnancy test. Every one of us can use the pregnancy test.
I get
So
it.
that's the most important thing. Vexations. When there's no vexations, there's no obstructions. It's natural functioning of our original free, liberated mind and body. That is the usefulness of Buddha Dharma, not terms, not ideas. It's, the usefulness is concretely, we're more happy, we're more stable, and those around us are not vexed by us. Otherwise, it's like we're like the virus that constantly contaminate everywhere that we go, everyone that we meet with our own, not so good state.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to contain the virus, use a method.
Mm.
So silent illumination, hua tou, all those begin with dualistic, all of them.
Subjectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of them. It's natural. It's natural.
Amazing.
Okay.
And would you say that the outcome of these methods are all, well, awakening, which would have the non-dualistic form?
The
That
method.
they share that in common.
The method that in Buddha Dharma, all the methods, not only meditation methods, so-called meditation, in Buddha Dharma. Do you guys know that in Buddha Dharma, there's no term for meditation? In traditional languages, there's no term for meditation. That's a Western idea. The Buddhist term is bhavana. Bhavana means self-cultivation, performing, amending, correcting. It's not limited to a seated posture. So from the Buddhist perspective, chanting is meditation. It's a form of bhavana. Does that make sense? So a lot of common ideas that if I use this method in meditation, then, your next door neighbor could be your meditation. Your annoying boss or client could be your meditation, because that's an opportunity to cultivate, to be free from self-referential grasping. It's a form of bhavana, right? So that's why Chan emphasized so much life, daily activities, not separating, this is practice, and that's real life. That kind of dualistic thinking, if you will, it's not so helpful. So implicitly, we start to live our life in a separated, not integrated, in a separated, compartmentalized way. This is this, and that's that. That's just another form of reification, solidifying into a thing. There is no thing. We're the one who make things, make everything into something. Everything is made of each other. Everything is integrated. So the methods of practice, just let the method take you. Just practice the method. If you're sitting method. If you are not sitting, life is the method. Or most people live in the head, so we teach to be embodied, to be in the body. Not standing yourself, watching yourself body, like simulating a body and then looking at it. Just thoroughly be in it, feeling it, grounding oneself in it as one engage in life, talk with people, completely present, doing some tasks, completely present doing the task. So always in a body-mind unified state. Always. Whether it's sitting, standing, lying down, or walking. Then one's engaging in bhavana practice. So all Buddhist method reaches that. It's not reaching that awakening. Awakening is already here. We're already with ourselves. It's just that we're walking around thinking we have a self, constantly making everything into a thing, solidifying it, right? This is the friend, that one's a jerk. This one, I don't really care. This one, constantly compartmentalizing. Right? Whereas everything is already free, not only ourselves, everything else. But people mistake their own vexations, their own self-referential notions, ideas, take that as real, and they solidify and they engage in action, harm other people, harm themselves, create oppositions. Even in the midst of that, we've never lost naturally awakened state. Okay? So it's not about gaining. It's about just exposing these tendencies, this self-referential attachment to this, and just let it go, let it go, let it go. So easily said than done. We may know it in the prefrontal cortex, we know it rationally, but emotionally, we can't. That's what samadhi power comes in. Right? So you're more integrated. Rational and feeling become one. So actually release it. Not be so tethered, tied to it, to our ideas, notions, and things that we create. So self-referential attachment lessons. That's the benefit of practice. And you can't read about it and get that benefit. You can't think through it to get that benefit. You can only develop samadhi, only through practice. Does that make sense? Yeah. So in the beginning, when people come across Buddhist teachings, they like to read, which helps. It helps to make sense of things, but actually it doesn't help to be less selfish. It doesn't really help, maybe a little bit, superficially. You can remind yourself, okay, be nice, don't be less selfish. But as soon as a kind of stronger stimulus come, we're right back to where we used to be. It's because we have no samadhi power, like transformative power. We live in a split life, here versus here, a split. So we can't control ourselves. We know something's good. We know we should do it, but we can't do it. So only practice. Only practice. In life.
Yeah.
Always body and mind grounded, relaxed. That at the very least, we diffuse the bodily tension and mechanism that hold our self-referential attachment in place. So diffuse it by always, under all such circumstances, our body and mind are really relaxed. So the kind of fight or flight and then stress, cortisols, hormone doesn't flush out throughout the body. We can kind of be in tune with how we feel. Right? If we're always kind of tense, that's practice. Very, very concretely, throughout your day, daily life, how grounded are we? How relaxed are we? How present are we to the person, to the task at hand? That's genuine practice. How happy are we? Our mind is at ease. 安心, we say in Chinese. Okay? So
fantastic. Thank you so much.
You got the long version. You got the long version of the answer.
Yeah, it's amazing. It will take me a couple of weeks to digest this now.
Did you guys record this, Xing?
Yeah.
Okay, just send it to people.
Great.
People can
fantastic.
View it if they want.
Yeah.
The reality. Yeah. The reality is, people always want things to be recorded. Whether they actually watch it later, usually not.
Well, some things I was listening to A couple of times at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, our sense of our life and habits and patterns sometimes prevent us from kind of watching and sitting down and actually watching it and learning and taking notes. It's hard. It's understood to be hard. But but the funny thing is that sense of knowing that, oh, it's recorded, I could always go back to it, but let me have a copy, please. You know, that sense of possession. But how many times you actually sit down and listen to it? That's an other business. So so the criteria is, here's a criteria. You can have a copy of the recording if you promise to actually watch it and take notes and learn from it. Otherwise, just more clutter. I don't even keep stuff that I talk about. The books that I wrote in, it's like chewed up bubble gum. You know, after you chew it, you throw it in the garbage. Maybe someone else will pick it up and chew it. That's a horrible, horrible analogy. I'm sorry. Speaking of which, I got the advanced copy of my Silent Illumination book. The Silent Illumination, Chan Buddha's Path to Natural Awakening. Now this is a chewed up bubble gum. You know, some people can still squeeze some juice out of it. You know, take it. You know, those kind of bubble gum underneath the table. At a restaurant, gosh, chew it. There's still some juice into it, maybe. Or it's good for like starting a fire in a fireplace in cold weather, maybe. All these are concepts, so they belong to the realm of reading, you know, words and language that help us to make sense of things, but the actual embodied experiencing that we have to and do the work ourselves. So all the different teachings within Buddhism is a teaching. We can't forget that. It's a teaching. So the problem is most of us evade life. Most of us are unwilling to face life. So we're constantly chasing after what we believe to be happiness and peace, even at the expense of taking advantage of those around us. And that is a form of suffering. And suffering in Buddhism does not mean only that life will end. Of course, life will end. The life will end, it's not it. Suffering is just first exposing life. The real message is understanding suffering, really understanding the cause of suffering, and that there is something we can do about it. That is, our true nature is free from suffering. And then we engage in the path. So the Four Noble Truths can never be taken out of context, highlighting only one. Right? Buddhist message is not suffering. Buddhist message is freedom. But we do all kinds of stuff to perpetuate suffering because we don't see the causes of suffering. Right? The self-referential, having, lacking, wanting, needing, success, failure. And we chase after everything that we grasp, trying to run away from, get rid of things that we don't like. That actually perpetuates suffering. So we don't see the cause. Therefore, we're not free. but we're already free. We just don't know it. And no one wants to practice. Everyone just, read about Buddhism and it's all up in their head. Those are just words. They don't mean anything. Right? So my take on the Four Noble Truths is that the Four Noble Truths, right? First, we're already free. And that's what distinguishes Buddhism from Chan or Zen form of Buddhism. The first point, the correct view, is the view of ultimate truth. Ultimate truth is not suffering. Ultimate truth is the only correct view. And that is, we're already free. We're already free. Nirvana, cessation of suffering. This is not only a possibility, this is who we are. But we have to understand suffering and what perpetuates suffering. So we have to expose, we have to look at it, experience it, and work with it. The causes through the method. Right? So suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, the ending, which is freedom, and then the path. Right? So the starting point from Chan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism is already free. So why exchange yourself, this freedom? Why exchange it with all the vexations, the 烦恼 that we usually operate under? Most people are oblivious. They're blind to actually how their 烦恼, vexations actually work. They have no idea. Right? That's not practice. We're already free. But there are things that bind us, that cause us suffering, that we're not free. What are those things? Causes of suffering. So dealing with these two first. Then the method, the path, and then suffering, you'll naturally be free. That's why practitioners, those practitioners who have been practicing for decades, 20, 30, 40 years, they're at peace. They're happy. Why? Because they know how to practice. It's not intellectual ideas. If you just read intellectual idea, theoretically, all Buddhists should be very sad. It should be very sad, right? They walk around with a gloomy face. That's just notions, ideas. Now, why are these people, long-time practitioners, happy, at ease? Because they're dealing with removing causes of suffering, the vexations, the grasping, and they have experienced this freedom. Maybe here, a little bit here, a little bit here, throughout the decades, they have some insights, and their life is actually better, not in the sense of becoming more rich or no more physical suffering, not in that sense, but the way they experience things, much more freer. See, so what's the point of practice? To experience who you truly are, your freedom, to experience true peace, and to bring a meaningful life to not only yourself, but everyone around you. So everything you touch, everyone you touch, for generations to come, you work for the benefit of them. Not work for your own awakening, your own freedom. That is a meaningful life. That's why we live. If we live for our own self-referential thing, I live because of my job or my immediate small family, not so meaningful. Every one of them die. So your heart, the mind, is not set on the path. The heart is set on the people in your life. Something that's unstable, something that changes. Friends become foe. Family become distant. Right? Loved ones become enemies. So the heart, our mind, must be set on the path or our true nature. So that's the fourth noble truth or the third noble truth, freedom. So most people, they live their life. They set their heart on friends. Friends is most important. When they get a little older, maybe in the late 20s, 30s, 40s, they're trying to climb up the ladder of success. So job is more important. So they set their heart. Maybe along the way they get married, the person. So they set their heart on the person. So all these human developmental stages. And then when they get to 50 years old, they think, hey, I better start some practice because I'm still unhappy. Then they go to start to meditate. Too late. I'm sorry. For those of you who are 40, 50 years old, it's not too late, okay? But, I'm trying to make a joke, but our heart, from the beginning, we must recognize, take the Buddhist teaching and recognize what is the meaning of this life. The meaning. Don't get caught up with the superficial first layer. Everything is suffering, impermanence. Impermanence means new beginnings, infinite possibilities. Why should you see it negatively? Are you so conditioned by these words and language that there's only one interpretation of it? That's the kind of conditioning we have. Because we're constantly seeking for having, lacking, gaining is good, losing is bad. So all these tensions we interpret, impermanence, bad, permanence, very good. All these are just discursive thinking, conditioning. Impermanence means new beginnings, infinite possibilities. No self means relationships, connections. So don't get so caught up with words, language. Focus on true meaning. Nirvana, freedom, selflessness, awakening, non-duality, prajna, all these synonymous terms. And the path to get there. Don't set your heart on, it's not to say we don't have friends, we don't have family, we don't have partners, we don't have careers, jobs. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying prioritize in your heart. In your heart. The most meaningful thing that we can do is to practice Buddha Dharma. Not for ourselves only, for everyone around us. So wherever we go, we become a source of comfort for people, not a source of annoyance, vexations. So we make some use of this body and mind. My teacher used to say to me, what is the mind for the way? He says, body like a rag, mind like a mirror. So what does a rag do? It cleans. So cleans for what? It cleans everywhere it goes, it cleans. Now, normally when people, like when you go to the bathroom, when other people go to the bathroom, when they come out of it, the bathroom's more dirty. A Chan practitioner goes to the bathroom, goes to wherever they go. Wherever they go, it's cleaner than when they first got there. Why? for the benefit of others, the next person that want to use it. It's like a spring breeze. That's meaningful. You understand, Angelica?